Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Swinging a high fly ball, deep left field. Get out the tape measure, long gone. It may have hit the video board in left center. Christopher Morel, a booming two-run homer. Cubs trail 3-2.
One out here in the second. Ahmed Rosario with a shot to right field. That one is deep. Going back to the wall, Laureano. And that one is gone. Didn't take long, but the route is on. It is now 7-0.
Swung on and drilled to deep right. That ball is high. It is far. There it is. Gone. It is a Stantonian home run.
And the pitch to Burleson is hammered down the right field line. Is it going to stay fair? It does.
Another Cardinal home run. Their fourth of the game. A 3-run shot for Alec Burleson. And the Cardinals now lead 7-0.
Seventh inning for the Mariners. The 2-2. Gino takes off. It's low in the dirt. And Gino stops halfway. Here comes Julio home. Here's a throw. He is safe at home. Julio stole home. The Mariners add on another run in the most dramatic of ways.
Good morning. Happy that you're with us. Coffee and Cream, Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. The rain was not a problem this morning, Shane. You're welcome. I spoke to Mother Nature yesterday and told her that you had an issue with it.
What'd you hit her up on? Speed dial?
Well, so I thought I was talking to Shane. I saw somebody that looked like Shane. I thought I was talking to him.
Oh, in the neighborhood. I saw him.
And then I realized, oh, wait, you're not Shane. So I had to.
Oh, come on, Shane.
I had to make a separate phone call for our boy over there.
You're like, yeah, he's just been kind of whiny pants.
Did he look good? Oh, he always looks good.
He looked a lot like you, Shane.
Did he have my walk?
Yes.
He had your walk?
Did he look like he was walking on water?
Very determined. I did not realize that was our neighbor.
Yep, right down the road.
I did.
Very determined.
There is someone in our neighborhood that looks just like Shane.
Well, and I had
like him.
I had no idea. So I called you laughing hysterically. I'm like, you have got to see this. I swear to goodness, Shane is.
And what did I do?
I
dropped everything I was doing.
When I heard your car door beeping, I was like, this dude is really getting in his car to go check this out. So I was running to get ice because we had to have the kids out at the campsite. And when I called back, you're still laughing. And I'm laughing. And I want to know what you're laughing at. And when you told me the story, I was like, oh, that's him. I had no idea. I thought it was Shane. Like, I just wanted you to see it because I seriously thought that was Shane.
Well, so I told DB a while back that I would rather have somebody do a house chore for me and pay them for it than me actually do the chore. So it was when I was going out to ref and I told you I had 12 games and you were like, 12 games? Holy cow, good for you making that money. I'm like, yeah, because I'm using this money to pay somebody else to do something for me. So like, that's how I would go about the business. But I
did not know that was going to be your intended employee.
I saw Shane O 2.0 painting his own shed. And I'm like, this guy does pretty nice work.
So the funny thing is, you told me this like 3 weeks ago, and I had no idea it was the same person.
Same
and
guy.
You go, that's the kid!
That's the guy!
And I was like, kid? And you're like, yeah, he still lives with his parents. I was like, oh, shoot. He looks just like Shane. But then again,
it wouldn't shock me if Shane still lived with his parents.
I wish I still lived with my parents.
Sans the facial hair, Shane does look like a kid. And so, and I mean, I'm sure Zoe, they're just like, what am I? Because I had to take her with me yesterday. I'm sure, like what is this dude laughing at? I almost like slow pulled up to him, but I didn't just want to be staring somebody in the mouth, like exactly.
He's observant. Like, so he's always looking around. Like, if you tried to like snap a photo so you could show Shane, like, hey, I found your body double.
Yeah.
Like that guy would know about
would
it.
he be mad at
I don't know if
me?
he'd be mad, but he'd be like, this guy just took a photo of me and I saw it.
So he looked. So we established that he looked good. He was probably in some kind of Raider gear.
He was in all black.
He was in all black. He probably had glasses.
He did.
Probably had a little bit of a shadow going. I mean, you said he was younger, so
Had his hat pulled down.
Mm-hmm.
had his hat pulled
He's
down.
younger than you, but I wouldn't say he's like 20 years younger than you.
He
Oh
probably,
no,
I wouldn't think so. Do you think so?
I couldn't like stare.
Was
like
he
I
wearing
wanted
boots?
To. Kind of.
I
Like
didn't look that hard.
his it was very Shane-esque. Like his shoes had ties and then Velcro at the top.
Look at you.
Dude,
I think this boy's.
Did they
absurd.
light up?
I'm super.
Look at you.
So full disclosure, like even when I'm walking, I'll look at every little bit of scenery, just because in case something jumps off, I like want to know. And I'm dumb, right? Like
In case you get kidnapped, you're like, I was at the third branch
this
by the
just
park.
in, like
The mountain lion
I
came
used-
after me.
I used to think. I don't think you ever saw the show. I used to think I was Steve Rogers, the $6 Million Man, or Steve
The
Austin.
only Steve Rogers.
Steve
I know is
Austin.
Captain America.
Steve Austin. And so sometimes, like, I would try to see if anybody was in the trees or what was going on with the stream, or we have that little creek, and I'm like, why sometimes is the water flowing and sometimes it isn't, or grass will be growing through the fence, and I'm like, did they just put this up or did that grow? Like, I do those kinds of things just to keep myself occupied,
Sane.
right? Just sharp. And it's why I like that really bad show that was on television called Unforgettable, because the detective's job was, like, the whole key to the show was,
Yeah, you watched this show in like 3 days.
she tried to recreate these scenes that she had been before because she had a photographic memory.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, it works to my detriment too. So I'm like recall guy in a debate or an argument, or like I'll use numbers, and sometimes that annoys people when you're having a back and forth. Like I'll say, well, actually you said such and such and such and such, and they're like, no, at all. You know what I mean? It's just how my mind works.
How do they say it?
No, at all.
Yeah, there it is.
It's like, sorry, man. It's just.
Oh, I hear you. I get that all the time.
But I practice.
And the things you know are the things you experience.
I practice like memorization. Seriously,
and most people don't.
We played after we played Family Feud on Sunday. And I'm still mad at Omar for this, but Hales was the.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
not
sure.
Brown, not Shane's favorite.
No, so we're like eating, and they're like playing snippets. It was like Shazam, right? So they play like a snippet of a song, and you get to raise your hand, and they did it by tables, so it was like luck of the draw, right? And I raised my hand the first couple times, and he like didn't call on me. So I'm like, man.
So you took an issue with it?
No, yeah, kind of. So I stopped raising my hand. But I would say the song. It didn't matter who it is. Like, Shane, what are the odds? They played Vanessa Carlton 1,000 miles. Oh yeah.
Freaking bats.
Right away, I raised my hand, and the brothers and sisters in the room are looking at me like. But not to be outdone by Mike, who works at the university.
If I could fall.
No, listen, not to be outdone.
So there were a lot of relatives there last
There's
night?
a GA that works in the recruiting department. Brother, right?
I have a brother.
Knew every. Didn't matter if it was Jason Aldean, Kenny Chesney, Lil Durk.
He was in.
Man.
He had range.
Dude was raising his hand. Like, yeah, I think Mike's table won. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. But anyway.
Well, yeah, because you kept calling on him.
And so again, afterwards, I'm like, we're kind of walking out, and we had to take pictures, and stuff jumped off. And so I go over to Omar. I'm like, hey, man, can you not see? Like, what was going on in there? And he plays like he doesn't. Oh man, what table were you at? But I do, like, I remember those the songs, right? Like
you're a music.
It's
buff.
music. Yeah, it was music.
And you have.
But it was amazing how that room, and even when we played Family Feud, I didn't get to play, but I watched. Like, it kept my. Like, I wasn't as competitive as I normally am, just because most people don't know me, man. These parents would be like, man, who is this dirtbag just all in? So
until you hear Damon Benning, and you're like, oh no, here we go again.
I don't know, man. Nebraska's got some players because some current commits were there. Some recruits, I'm like, all I could think about in my head, again, just me being childish, going Steve Austin. I'm like, how long will you last here? Huh. Did you go to school here? Huh. Would your temperament fit with? That's all. I mean, every kid in the room, man. I'm like,
and I think that's why you're such a good multitasker. Because if somebody starts talking to you, you can listen to what they're saying.
I got my guy Ryan Terry, who kept me. Ryan, my Tyson's dad, like kept me sane the whole time because he's like right to my right. 1 minute we're talking about like, kids or vacation or food or being on the smoker or whatever. We're trying to answer music questions. I don't know, man. Like my brain sometimes it's just not good. So anyway, I totally memorized what your boy was wearing. It's a short story long. Because you
would be the perfect person to get kidnapped someday.
Yeah. Where if I was like blindfolded and they said, hey,
you'd be like 10 turns. We made 10 total turns. 3 of them were lefts. We started at this stop sign. It was.
I don't ever want to be kidnapped
before the first turn.
But I do practice, like, again, seeing things and knowing where I'm at. That's why I don't sit with my back to the door in public places. I got that from my dad.
You don't want people looking at the back of your head?
I want to see who's coming in. Almost 99% of the time. So yeah, anytime you want to get weird, come hang out with your guy.
So what about here at HVC? They put you up in a booth, right?
Yeah.
So there's a front door here, and there's that side door which leads out to the patio.
So
what side of the booth are you sitting on?
So full disclosure, one time they put me back here with Jay's parents. My back was to everything, like right where that black curtain is. And I was like,
You worried about somebody coming out and just grabbing you and pulling you in?
I'm like, the first available table that comes open out there.
No, you didn't.
Ask Bill. This was months. Yeah, this was a minute ago, but yeah, I did. So guess where they put me? Right next to the window out there. And I was like, dang, now I'm cold. So it's like,
good. Just sit there.
Just the eye roll. My offensive coordinator the other day was like, yeah, a bunch of they had to take some tests, neuro test, and he's a big time strength and conditioning guy. And he goes, yeah, so we went to Hail Varsity to eat. And he goes, these guys were like Benningburger, like this guy has food named after him. And coach,
you're famous.
My coach goes, this doesn't sound like him. So he sent me a random text. He goes, you like lettuce? ? I have no idea where he is or what he's doing. And I text him back and I go, it's okay. And that was it, right? Didn't think anything of it. So then I see him Monday at the workout.
You didn't even ask, like,
nope.
Why?
But because he's not a small talker, right? Like, I was surprised. He
asked a question and you answered.
You think I get to the point? He does not mess around. Like, this dude is pretty black and white. So on Monday, he's like, yeah, we were eating. And he goes, they had lettuce on the burger. I didn't think you liked lettuce. And I go, well, as long as it's not warm, it's okay. I think the only reason that they put that on the menu is they got sick of listening to my particulars. So they
decided to put everything under a bun.
Just put it on there and just say, get that instead of say, could I get this? Could I get that? A little bit of lettuce, a little right. Because it didn't exist. And I think they just got tired of taking the order. So they're like, I know.
No, DB, here's why they put your name.
You ordered
on
it
the
into existence.
No. Here's why they put DB's name
so
on
when
the menu.
Chris was making up the menu, he goes,
Damon.
No, that's not it. So Chris goes, what's that burger you get again? And I go, it's this. He goes, I think we're going to put that on the menu. I thought he was joking. I mean, this was like months.
Meanwhile, I'm asking to get fries named after me because DB gets a burger.
Can I get the Rurus? That's what you should do. Or the Claire's or something that nobody would know. That's see, paying that's too much attention. Like it should have been some
like Ruru's rap.
Yeah. Like Verzal has a pizza that he won't. Nebraska has to have a winning record before he has like a secret menu, and until Nebraska has a winning record, he's not putting it on the regular menu. So it's like a speakeasy, right? Where you're like, hey, can I? So he has a pizza called the 2-1. But of course it can't.
So now everybody can order it now because you just said so.
No, they can't. He won't. Do you think Verzal's giving in? Verzal told a dude a couple weeks ago to sit down. He'd get to him when he got to him.
Whoa!
Oh, God is my witness.
Not a friend?
Listen, the guy looked at. I swear he's gonna be so mad. He actually doesn't care. The dude sat down, right? And it's about to be busy. It's like 11:04, right? I'm trying to leave. Stopped in right after the show, and the guy's like him hawing around. I take it he's a regular, and Maddie goes, look, pal, you're not the only one in here. So it's a lot going on. Got Coke products, water. Like, what are we doing? And the dude kept thinking, and Matt went to the next table. I said, oh, that's what we're on. I'm telling you,
what are you
man,
in the mood for when you walked in,
dude?
Most of the time it's water.
But it is safe. So, but real talk though, it is annoying when you go to a place you've been to and you act like they're serving something different, right? Let's say you have a range of like 4 or 5 things. Pick one.
Are we talking pizza or soda?
Those people that look at the menu.
Soda's tough, though.
Oh, stop.
What's
tough about it?
Because if you're a Pepsi guy and you go someplace and it's all Coke products and you sit there and you hem-haw around.
You're missing it.
You hem-haw around.
DB said that he's been there before.
But, and that's true.
Products.
That's the only way I could imagine how you would talk to him like that.
No, that's just how Verz.
There's some truth to that. I need to get
but
clarity.
It has to be a friend.
No,
like a friend of the business.
It did not come off like that.
Really?
No, it did not come off.
What if it was
like
just some like old dude that loved the offensive line back in the 90s and Matt Verzal was
so
his favorite and now he's not?
His favorite, or
He's
probably
like,
one of his number one customers. The guy's in there every time I'm in there. He's older and they have the exact same temperament, so they get along. They're the same. What's so hard about pop? Like you drink Dr. Pepper, you drink Coke, you drink like.
And what if you are just a Coke fan and it is Coke, but they're out.
If you're a Coke fan, do you drink Pepsi products?
And let's say they're out of the one Coke product that you like. I mean, then you would hem-haw.
Get water.
What if you don't like water?
All right,
what if
Shane,
there's only one thing that you
like? Then get out.
Shane, let's role play.
Then get out.
Shane, let's role play here. We serve Coke products. What do you want?
I don't even know the difference, so I don't even know why I'm talking. But
like, what soda are you choosing out of Coke products?
I don't know, because I've had Mr. Pibb.
Which ones are the Coke
sucks.
products? So it's Pibb, Dr. Pepper, right?
Yes,
One's
Steve.
Coke, one's Pepsi.
It's Pibb,
Sprite, Sierra Mist,
Dr.
stuff like
Pepper
that.
is its own
Sprite,
thing.
Diet Coke,
But Coke,
Cherry
it's
Coke.
normally on Coke.
I would probably go
machines.
Cherry Coke, but then
Who has Cherry Coke in their fountain? It's Coke, it's Sierra Mist, or not Sierra Mist anymore. It's Starry.
Yeah,
but that's Pepsi.
You get
So
Coke
it's
and you get
it's
grenadine.
You're
Coke.
49
Coke and
years
you get-
old
you
and
get
you're
Coke.
ordering Cherry Coke.
You get Coke and you get grenadine. Yeah, because I don't like Coke products. Coke products suck.
Hey, DB.
I hate Coke products.
Hey, do you mind getting me a Coke? But if you go over to the bar, can you put some grenadine in there for me?
See, that's why I confused you with my neighbor. You
Grenadine?
are a child.
What are you making, Shirley Temples?
I don't know. Your mom usually makes them for me.
Yeah, and I'm sure
There you
they're
go.
dang good.
Yeah, I knew.
Always
I knew he was getting
dang
fired
good.
up. It's okay.
Shane, go paint my shed.
Will your mom help?
Wow.
Oh,
This probably shouldn't get any easier. Shane, let's go to Michigan Lance early in the morning. Lance, good
Hey,
morning,
Lance,
man. What's up?
Good morning, boys. Hey, so you on your little recruit visit deal, right, DB?
Sure.
And so, and I'm not being funny here, man. This is serious because you're putting, you're entrusting your kids to go to somebody that's recruiting them, right?
Correct.
So did any parents have any questions about hazing and Northwestern? Like, did any of that conversation come up?
No, it wasn't.
Really?
It wasn't really like a super open Q&A forum. There were just things to do.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. Why? Do you think people want to? I don't know if people care enough about that kind of stuff, to be honest.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. So you like, because me and my wife played college sports and we knows what goes on. And so we know there's those types of things out there. Like, there's schools that she has non-negotiables on, like, because of certain things they've done in the past. Where she's like, you know what? Nah, we're, don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does, if it's the last college on earth, we're good. She's like, nah, we're not doing that. So I was just wondering, like, I would hope people would ask more, get involved into that type of stuff.
So what's the question look like? Like, do you guys have naked car washes? Like what? Like,
man.
No, how are you phrasing the question?
Well, I would say, hey, what is your policy on hazing?
Okay. And
nice, simple, generic. Hey, well, if you do hazing, what does it look like? Like, I'm not opposed to hazing.
No one's going to admit they do hazing, though.
Right.
Yeah, right. So then that's why you say, hey, what do you do about it?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because if it happens, then what? So you might. I understand you go say, hey, I'm not going to tell you, hey, we do this, and that. Okay, but what happens if it does? What is your policy?
Well, I'm sure
certain things.
Yeah, you'll get we have a strict no hazing policy. I mean, it's going
to be the same answer across the board.
I don't know. I would hope. Nah, because it just depends on where people.
I feel like that's more of a small circles question.
Yeah.
Like, I talk about it here with this group of people or there, but I don't really ask that question in front of a big audience.
Yeah. I mean, because I'm sure Rule dealt with some questions at Baylor, like, about.
Oh yeah,
well, that was fresh off of it.
For sure.
Well, it doesn't. Listen, man, it doesn't matter when, where, that. I mean, it's just. I'm sure people have those conversations. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure somebody can have a question. I would ask about Baylor now. Like, hey, what have y'all changed to? You know what I mean?
So what's funny about that is he's starting to let his track record speak for itself, because he's wetting in the sandbox early, right? Like he's marking his territory.
Oh, yeah.
You've had players sent home. You've had a couple dismissed. You've had a coach that fell under zero tolerance. You kind of get an idea on what you're dealing with.
Most definitely. And, I think Trev plays a part in that too, because he set a foundation on, hey, this is what the program's going to be. You know what I mean? I think it's like everybody's on the same page. Like,
right. When Trev would say things like, no person is bigger than the university. The student athletes come first. We want a culture of safety. Yeah, he's
right.
That's a good point. Like, but I do think that's why this is the best combination. And I don't know how it's going to again translate into wins.
Right.
But this is the best combination of head coaching prowess and administrative leadership that they've had in over 20 years. Mm-hmm. Like if you're pairing the two.
If you have eyes and ears and you pay attention, you can see that.
No question.
Lance, appreciate the call, man. Jack, stick around. We will get
right
to
there.
You right out of the break. More CNC coming your way. Got a great show ahead. Mitch Sherman, the first guest on the docket at 8 o'clock. We'll set up the rest of the show when we come back.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Coffee and Cream, 590 ESPN Radio in Omaha, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, and live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Happy to see everybody joining in via the chat room on YouTube. Happy to get phone calls, 888-638-4876. We love talking with you guys out there. Mitch Sherman coming your way at 8 o'clock. Brian Edwards at 8:45, and Michael Bruntz on, or I should say, in the hole at 9 o'clock. We have the Sports Six-Pack later on in the show as well. Did we just lose him, Shane?
Yeah, he dropped off.
Jack, where'd you go? Come back, Jack. Or is it Shane? Bruntz was rocking an Orioles hat at practice the other day.
He disbanded from the A's to now root for a team in first place.
He said something funny, but I couldn't exactly remember the why.
Wait, he wore an Orioles hat to Nebraska practice?
Yeah.
Was he one of the only people there wearing a Orioles team hat?
I didn't.
Because that's noticeable when you're wearing another team.
Yeah, so I only talked to a few people. Like I said hello to Brady. I said hello to Sip. I said hello to Gas Can or Sean Callahan. Bruntz, BC. Yeah, probably. But I didn't look really. Bruntz's was prominent because the top was white.
Got it. Okay.
So it kind of hello. So it kind of stuck out. And
drew attention.
Is that the way it sounded?
Yeah.
When you said?
That's what I said.
Yeah, but he ran up there.
I think I did say hello, friend. Or I said Bruntz. Yeah.
Hello, friend.
You know, he's just real.
You're like Forrest Gump surviving the storms, and you come back on your boat and you're like,
so, and you never know, like in those settings, like, are you supposed to stop and talk, or are you trying to maximize their 30 minutes? That's what I am always because I want to be
respectful.
I want to be respectful of their time too. And
the
short
short
don't want to
window.
waste their time.
No, but
they're like, dude, go somewhere. Stop making small talk.
I feel like small talk in that way can turn out to be something good, though, because you see the game.
Yeah, but they're not asking me my opinion, though.
No, but even if it just kind of pops up, you're standing in front of, we'll just say, Coach Coop working with, the secondary. And you're just having a conversation, and then you see something out of the corner of your eye. Yeah. Now you both just start talking about that, and the conversation can spark in a good way just from that initial small talk conversation.
So from here on out, I'm just going to be like, hey, give me 10 of your 30 minutes. Now they'd be like,
I'm a talker. I don't like being there and just being quiet.
Oh, I bet I didn't talk to almost anybody except for Brand, obviously. And
Shafe actually made a comment when I did it. I hopped on his podcast on Tuesday. He's like, one of the first times that I was got to really know you was when you introduce yourself at practice, like when you talk.
Yeah,
when you go up to people.
You do ask. You're very inquisitive.
So I'm just. Well, first I wanted to thank him and everybody else for coming on our show every day.
Yeah.
Or every week, I should say. But
glad
secondly, I
glad somebody has some.
And secondly, I just wanted to
some people skills between us.
I just wanted to get to know these people and let them get to know me, because no one knew me.
Getting to know you.
I don't know. I want to get to know Jack.
All right, let's talk to Jack.
Shane, pot him up. Jack, good morning. Welcome to the show. We appreciate you calling us back.
You bet. No problem. Question. Well, first off, I want to congratulate Damon on his interview with Coach Rule. That was outstanding.
Oh, I appreciate that, Jack. Thank you.
That was truly outstanding work.
Thank you.
Secondly, all you read about on social media, and I'm not a big ESPN guy, but I did pull up their website and do some reading this morning.
Yeah.
On more Big Ten expansion.
Uh-huh.
Everywhere you read, it's going to be this team that, we're going from Washington, Oregon, North Carolina, Clemson to Florida State, to all over the place.
To Cal, to Stanford.
Yeah, and I don't think they move the needle. They just don't move the needle financially, and I don't think the other schools are going to let teams in that could hold their games in high school football stadiums for the attendance they get to draw money away from the existing teams. It's going to have to be people that move the needle financially. That's number one. And who could that possibly be? I'm going to hang up and see what you guys' thoughts are.
Hey, Jack, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You have a fantastic accent. What part of the country are you from?
Well, I've been in Nebraska since 1972, but I'm originally from Texas.
All right. I appreciate that. There's a little bit of
I can't lose it, man.
Listen,
it just doesn't go away.
My mom is from Houston. She's the same way. That's why I asked. Appreciate the call, Jack.
Thanks, Jack. Interesting question.
I'm dying on this hill, and anybody that's ever listened to me the last 3 years knows exactly the two teams that I'm going to say, because I called my shot
a long time ago
in 2021 going into 2022. The only two teams I feel comfortable saying, yep, are Washington and Oregon. I've said that from the jump. Those were my non-negotiables. But here's the funny thing.
It's probably the favorite.
Those are the only two like where I would like put Shane's money down. So $7 that Washington and Oregon are coming to the Big Ten.
I'll add $1.
I wish I had $7.
Me too, by the way.
You spend it all on soda coming in.
Sure does. Like the grocery sack, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So we have to be missing something. Okay, because this is the low-hanging fruit, Drew Down, is this. They have to bring something to the table financially. I don't believe that to be the case. I know that because you have to. So let's say a television deal going forward nets you $10 more per team than it did before. You probably do that deal. So I say all that to say if the next negotiating rounds and you have this to the market, and let's say if you're getting $80 million for 18 teams and you get $92 million or $94 million for 20 teams, you're not increasing equally by adding teams, but the piece of the pie is big enough where I don't believe you're telling a school no that enhances your conference portfolio by just simply being in the conference. I say all that to say it's not going to be all about the enhancement. Some of it will be about travel, right? Some of it will be about keeping the inventory in-house. It's not because if it were about who could get you more dollars by coming to the conference, there'd be like 3 teams moving. But yet we still see I think the end game here is you're playing the long game, people. You're playing the long game. You want as attractive a big conference as you can have. And when the dust settles in about 3 years or 4 years and those TV right deals come up again, you want to have the desired one. You want to have the most attractive conference. Don't count the short nickels. Count the long, slow dimes. That's what I believe. Because I'm only saying that because if it was about who adds to the pie, there are very few teams that are coming. How many Notre Dames are out there? Right? Even FSU and Clemson, it's not like ooh, money revenue, right? But remember when I got to pick the 4 teams yesterday, I stayed on the West Coast. Right? I didn't want to dabble in the AC. Did
you toss Notre Dame in too?
I did if you got the first 4 because I get it, right? Cal broke. You have to subsidize them for a little bit. Okay. Stanford. For the conference, you still have to have other teams to compete against in some of your other Olympic sports. And, if I'm in rowing or crew and I get it, right? Oh, you're not. But you also don't want to have to pay for that travel to go elsewhere for those sports programs to drop either. So we got to think bigger than just the almighty dollar. Now, the almighty dollar drives it, but I don't think anybody's splitting hairs between if you're going to pay me $28 million a year versus if you're going to pay me $30. I think they're looking at I think they're looking at the total dollar figure relative to their competition, and you want the most attractive.
And away from financials, if you add a couple of those Pac-12 teams, academics matters too.
Yeah, and you want 4 in the pod.
It matters.
It's gonna help. It's gonna help your travel.
My question though is,
Rutgers is traveling 6,100 miles in total this year to play football.
My question is, how big is too big? Like, that's really what we need to settle on eventually.
It appears
because the Big Ten is going to be first.
It appears to be 20.
Well, they're going to be first to have a chance of getting to 20. But if we're going to keep just tossing around like the teams in the ACC, the Notre Dames of the world, and the rest of the Pac-12,
Stanford, don't get it twisted. Stanford's going to come with Cal, but Stanford also make it very appealing to Notre Dame as well. Whether Notre Dame joins the conference or not, you could get on at least 4 or 5 games on the Big Ten schedule.
We'll push off more of this conversation.
Remember, Michigan is there
after
too.
We talk to Mitch Sherman next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes.
The Go Big project, the facility that was being built, which started obviously by the previous regime, is, I think, a game changer. You might have heard me say this before, but when my wife walked through it for the first time, she's been in a lot of football facilities. She walked in my office and she's like, "You better win some dang games because you got no excuses." I mean, it's beautiful, and it was all set. There's not really many changes I can make. Nor that he. It was all set. There's not really many changes. Because, it's beautiful.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute.
The Go Big project, the facility that was being built, was started, obviously by the previous regime, is, I think, a game changer. You might have heard me say this before, but when my wife walked through it for the first time, she's been in a lot of football facilities. She walked into my office and she's like, "You better win some dang games because you got no excuses."
Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back, Coffee and Cream. I got my times mixed up. I thought it was already 8. That's how early it is.
I can't wait.
I said Mitch Sherman coming up next. No, he's not. Now he's coming up next. He's coming up at 8 o'clock.
And the next segment.
That is correct.
I give or take 14 minutes.
You know what? The brain.
Next hour.
No.
Next hour. You still mad, aren't you?
The next top of the hour.
You're mad. This dude went and Googled Dr. Pepper's company.
I didn't Google it. I just read it off my 7-Up bottle.
And what did it say again?
It said Dr. Pepper 7-Up INC.
Wow.
INC.
That's exactly what
Ink,
it said.
baby, ink.
Yeah,
Wow.
incorporated. I assume it's
INC.
incorporated. It did. It said Dr. Pepper / 7-Up.
INC. Yeah. Yep.
Shane, you're fantastic.
I know, right?
And I
get told that all the time.
In our YouTube page comment section, which should be sponsored by, let's say,
Dr. Pepper 7-Up.
Nope, not that.
I don't know, somebody like Adam Cockrell at Coley Jessen or somebody like that. I don't know. Sounds good to me.
Wink, wink.
My man, college football professor.
He's
Adam.
chiming in.
See, he's a smart man. He gets
especially when it comes to teams and expansion, like this is his
because
baby.
you got to see big picture, right? He says if Stanford and Cal are added, it's not for football reasons; it's for research co-op possibilities on the academic side. Those schools' research dollars dwarf most others. Adam, that is 100% correct.
This dude,
you have to kind of think. And it's almost like everybody gets the same talking point, but you need to listen to like the John Orans or it's not. And I love the fans because the fans are typically nice to me, and they make the world go round. But the short, narrow-sided perspective sometimes it drives me up the wall. Just like again yesterday. Do you know how? I don't know if you know this.
I don't know most things, so.
But apparently, Miles Farmer wasn't a good football player. This is what's funny.
We have yet to even talk about.
No, this is what's funny though. Okay, this allow me to get on. I'm an Irish Spring guy, although currently I'm rocking a big blocky bar from Bath and Body. I don't know the scent. It's like caramel colored, but anyway. Here's the deal, and I don't understand why fans do this. And maybe it's because they get a pass, but I hate that, right? It's like the whole, the second man gets caught. Well, that's because we say it, like we speak it into existence. Well, fans are going to fan because you let them off the hook, right? Like if they know how ludicrous it sounds, maybe they'll stop saying it, even though it's, fan is short for fanatic. So, and when a guy's not ours, when he leaves, he all of a sudden is not capable of getting better. Right? Like last year is exactly how he's going to be this year. But the other 98% of the guys were banking on the fact that they get better. Oh, man. I sure was mad at Ty Robinson last year. But this year under Rule, he's going to be fantastic. I'm telling you.
He sounds good. He looks good.
Run stopper, man. Hey, I know that guy didn't play at this school, but, man, under this staff, the development, pencil him in. He's going to be the dude. It doesn't.
It's easy to do. It's easy to get excited
that cannot be the case. So if Miles Farmer, you didn't like something he did last year, and even though he was like top 3 in tackling, he's the one guy. He's the one guy that if he came back this year would be the exact same player. Does that even make sense?
No, that's why the door swings both ways.
Sounds like fandom to me.
Does that? But what? So who do you think
they don't realize what they're saying?
Who do you think really believes that? All the other guys could get better from a year ago, but not the guys that are leaving. They're just terrible, right?
That sounds about right.
It's unbelievable.
Pretty much so.
I'm like, yeah, okay. That guy wasn't very good this year, but man, we sure do have him penciled in. If he just. And if they tweak, and if can just unlock.
But see, if he pops out of the transfer portal and he says, I want to come back to Nebraska, now he's going to be
I don't know, man.
No, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know where I'm going.
I don't know if they'll let you back. You got to be like a really good guy, like a quarterback. And you had to have taken your lumps for 3 years or 4 years if a team would leave the door open for you to come back and the fans would embrace it. But that just drives. And listen, I'm sure there's going to be some people.
Different they're going to be like,
staff. They're going to be like, man, that damn DB. That's why I said your kid sucks. Because I tell you things that I think if they hurt your feelings, I'm probably talking to you. Just because he's not on your team or she's not on your team, that all of a sudden means they can't be people that get better. But everybody else that's still on the team can, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
for sure.
See, Jeff Sims. Do you know who we don't do that with? We don't do that with Jeff Sims. What if Jeff Sims is the exact same player he was last year?
Yep.
You guys are mad. You're mad. But guess what? Oh man, if Jeff Sims could just be in the top half of the tier in the Big Ten, man, woo wee.
Big body, big target.
Yeah, big body, big target, Mr. Arik Gilbert.
The majority of
we're cooking
in the top half of the Big Ten.
We're cooking with oil, right? But the guys that leave, oh man, they were this last year. They're going to be this anyway. I'm just going to fan. It doesn't even sound right. It's so hypocritical, and we give it a pass because we say, oh man, that's just fans. Oh man, it's just dumb. There's just no other way around it, right? We're expecting Gabe Ervin. Hey, man, Gabe Ervin. And you're talking to a fan. Oh, Gabe Ervin, man. If he, I know I didn't see it last year, but this year, man, under this tutelage, or, Anthony Grant. Oh, I know, man, but this year under this. Farmer, oh, man. He sucked last year. Second leading tackler. He did that being sorry.
Man, you seem like you had a little Clinton in your blood right now.
He did that. He was sorry.
Because I feel like you're breaking down what we just broke down. Coach watched 30? The breakdown during the break. You're coming at it now like with a little energy, and then you're calming it back down.
Because I think
coming at it with energy, we bring it back to planet Earth.
I think the answer is easy. Would the coaches prefer that he stay or that he goes?
I believe the coaches would prefer he stays.
Now, and now you can say, you can say that without it being the end of the world.
They're not
right?
Going to wait.
Because that's what people want to caution you about. Because when we talk to people, it's either a 1 or it's a 10. There's zero middle ground. So it's like, not a big deal. Not a big deal, man. It's fine. Not a great loss. So we demean the players that are losing. It cannot be a huge deal, and you still not have to pee on the guy on his way out, right? Because he's capable of being a pretty good player, right? Like it's like, but it's not just a farmer thing. It's why do we anticipate the best case scenario with everybody else that is left, and they might not have been very good last year either, but that guy's going to stay the exact same because it fits our narrative.
Well, when Adrian Martinez left, and I wasn't here for conversations like this, was the result the same?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So here's what I think. For one, I'll never tell a fan how to fan, because if they want to be optimistic about whatever they want to be optimistic about, they can, whether they're wrong, whether they're right. Fan how you want to. But until they see that person then perform, because once Adrian Martinez started to play really well at K-State, what were all the conversations like? Oh, see, he was always really good. He was always really good. I'm telling you, like, if he was still here, he was good. If he could just stay healthy, Adrian Martinez.
I just think it's like, I don't know, man. Just pull back and like just listen for a second. Like just hear what you're saying. Right? It's I don't know. I don't know why it bugs me so much, except for the fact that, like, that's why coaches coach. Like, they're in the development business. And if you have to correct it, it's funny. There's like all sorts of life analogies. How many times, like in your household, can you tell somebody to correct a behavior before it aggravates you?
I would say the third time it would aggravate.
That's not a very big number, is it? Mm-mm. Try coaching. You're correcting behaviors and protocol all the time. You're constantly critiquing performance. Constantly. And in our own households, we're pissed after the fourth time. Hey, Tim, do you have to leave your shoes in front of the door? Oh, man, Amy, you just told me that yesterday. Tim, then fix it. Day 7. You sling Tim's shoes in. Tim's looking at Amy. Man, hey, why does she have to be like that? That's like the third time that Tim's left his shoes in front of the door. Uh-huh. Try coaching. Are you going to leave that dude? You're not going to try to correct the behavior? You tell your kid something 17 times, and you're pissed after the third. Mm-hmm. But why do you keep telling them if you feel like they can't get better?
Because you know that behavior.
You just like bitching and moaning?
No, you know the behavior can be corrected.
Try coaching. right? Like,
why do you leave your shoes under the door?
Because he's lazy.
I'm so sick of Shane this morning. It's like, is this not a practical application of our own life? We're mad. We're frustrated if we have to tell somebody the same thing 2-3 times.
Maybe his shoes were wet.
I've told
I don't
you
know.
3 times. I was like 3.
Leave him outside.
That's
then,
only
Shane.
Try 3 days of practice. How many times you got to correct somebody? Mm-hmm. But hey, man, tough it out. Tough it out. Hang in there. You got to be able to take it.
You got 100 players. It's going to happen.
We'll go close the door in our own house. And that's with somebody you love. Bunch of hypocrites. Cut it out.
Maybe the shoes were wet.
Hey, way to stand up for Tim there, Shane.
And Amy. Whoever they are.
All right, now we'll talk to Mitch Sherman next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
The Go Big project, the facility that was being built, was started, obviously by the previous regime, is, I think, a game changer. You might have heard me say this before, but when my wife walked through it for the first time, she's been in a lot of football facilities. She walked into my office and she's like, "You better win some dang games because you got no excuses." I mean, it's beautiful.
Hey, top of the hour on Coffee and Cream in the morning on 590 ESPN Radio, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. DB, Andrew Rogers, happy to have you with us and happy to be joined by Mitch Sherman via StreamYard. If you are watching at home, you can catch him on YouTube or, like I said, live on Twitter. There's Mitch now. Mitch, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
Mitch, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Mitch, before DB gets into his questions here, he told me something during the break that I could not believe, and I need it from the source. Apparently at Fan Day, Mitch Sherman was dressed to the nines. Was that true?
The family was in Husker gear. He's not a very good listener, Andrew, but yeah, it was.
No. It was not my family. That was my neighbor. That was my neighbor Aaron and his son Damon. They are.
His son is Damon.
Damon, yeah. Go check my Twitter. Go check my Twitter from.
Let's go.
Now I'm
just my Twitter from.
I thought you were saying it was Mitch.
No,
yeah. So okay, my kids were there, Damon, but you did not see them because when I was parking and got out of the car, I dropped them off, and they got in line.
Well, I saw your middle son, and when I was coming through it wasn't your middle son. So I saw he's the hooper that I saw at UBT.
Okay,
that?
Yeah, he was Zach. He was there.
Yeah,
with my daughter, his older sister. But they were in line when I saw you in the parking lot, and I was getting out of my car with some good friends who absolutely were dressed to the nines, not just in the boombox, but you saw the bump box, right?
Okay. So yes. It was friends of the Shermans. Got it.
Yeah.
That thing.
No, go check it out. On my Twitter, I retweeted my man Damon. Who
your other guy.
Right. Damon, my 13-year-old bud Damon, who got to meet Matt Rule as one of the lucky 400. And
so he won the drawing? Or it was a drawing.
I mean, there were a bunch of winners, but yeah, he got picked to go see Coach, and upstairs, you couldn't even see it from on the field. They had Matt Rule's the backdrop, so the fans who were down on the field could not see that the head coach was up there on the balcony because he was behind a big set, and then all of the kids who won the lottery and got picked were up there with him.
That is cool.
And like Matt Rule said as he left Big Ten Media Days, his only disappointment about the upcoming Fan Day was that he didn't get to meet everybody. And that they only had time for him. It was a big recruiting weekend, as you know, and camp was starting the next day. So he had a limited amount of time. They had 400 kids who got to meet him. And my guy Damon was one of them. And there is a picture that he posted and then I retweeted on, I think, Tuesday night. It took him a couple days to get the courage to go and post that picture. But he's awesome, man. He's Gretna's biggest fan. We could do an episode.
I thought that was Dirk Chatelain and Mitch Sherman.
Gold.
Yeah, no, it was not. That was not. Dirk was not involved in that. But
Gretna's biggest fan.
Yeah, I was wondering. We were talking as we were walking up toward the Hawks, like about how what must Damon Benning, what must the other Damon, what must you have thought of that as you saw us in the?
Great question. I was definitely afraid. So at like 2:40, this is so funny. I feel like Mitch has my phone tapped. At like 2:40, I'm trying to corral everybody because I'm looking for an escape route, right? Mm-hmm. And when I looked at the clock, I was like, oh, it's over. I'm like, they had to have started to get there at what time? Probably 12:30. So I knew
fans who lined up,
yeah, we were just going to have to kind of walk through it. but I couldn't believe how they stack the day. You know how they don't like to waste time? Because, we got there at like 9:30, 9:45. The barbecue went all the way up until 3. Mm-hmm. Now the coaches are involved, obviously. So they're running down after you get the facility tours, and they're getting ready for fan day with zero break. And I guarantee you their day started before our day. I just couldn't believe how they just don't have any wasted downtime in a 15, 18-hour day.
Yeah, I ran into Dr. Elza out on the field, and
she was a mile a minute.
She needed to clone herself about 5 times last weekend, and fortunately, they have some people working in the department. She actually is cloning herself and training some people to be in those administrative positions and do the things that she does. But it was, she was looking forward at that point. She told me to Monday when practice started, because as hectic as that is. And you're dealing with 120 players. It was going to be a reduction in pace from everything that was going on that weekend and those few days leading up to the open at camp.
Oh, can't wait for practice so this thing slows down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, how does that doesn't need? But she was probably the second face that I saw at practice, and she was all the way down in what would be the easternmost corner of the double grass field, just walking kind of the facility to make sure. I'm not sure what she was checking on. It looked like she was like doing agronomy. Like she wanted to make sure that everything was everything with the setups on the field. That grass is fantastic.
She has earned her salary this summer, this off season, but especially this summer leading up to the open at camp, and Coach Rule mentioned on Monday that she had not taken a day off this summer. So you want to start to think about like where that operation begins from a logistical and administrative standpoint. It's right there, and you see how important that hire was for him to get right, because everything that before it gets to his desk, all of the things that he's got to do, the responsibilities that he has outside of coaching football. And there are a lot of them when you're the Nebraska coach, they go through her, and, they seem to be managing it pretty well, especially for someone who's never been in that position before.
Yeah.
Mitch, we just got done talking about Miles Farmer a little bit. And, I think it was pretty easy to catch on to after hearing Coach Rule speak on Monday that there was some disappointment there with Miles. And, we kind of alluded that this could be, what had come to be, right? Him ending up in the transfer portal. Who's a guy do you think, though, that could take advantage of this situation and step up in his place on this team? Maybe not a starter in week 1, but just somebody that could really take advantage of that open opportunity.
Well, I'd look at Corey Collier, the transfer from Florida. I'd look at Omar Brown, the transfer 2 years ago from Northern Iowa, who eased into things last year, dealt with some injuries, and, has by all accounts had a very good offseason, even before any of this began with Miles. I'd look at Isaac Gifford, who I think was already entrenched, and, he's been a starter, but now he's in a position to play an even bigger role. I think Farmer, if he had been around, it was to be determined whether he was going to be a rover or stay at safety.
Yep.
Now Isaac is that guy at safety. I think undoubtedly, there's other players at that position. You have Gage Stenger, you have Javen Wright. Really interesting to hear Tony White mentioned the other day that Eric Fields is playing rover.
I think that's where Farmer was going to go. Fields is the guy that I think could benefit the most from Farmer's departure.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Eric Fields, and I was in Ardmore, Oklahoma, back in early March, late February, when I went to Texas to do the story about
Nebraska. Talked about my love fest for him.
Right. Yeah. Fields is a linebacker. Like his mentality about football, it's all linebacker. In fact, there were schools that wanted to get in recruiting him, and he rebuffed them because they were looking at him as a safety. So I think it tells you the fact that here we are in the first week of camp and he's playing rover at Nebraska, or at least, dabbling with that. White said they're moving him around, but the rover was the first spot that he mentioned. I think it tells you something about how they see that position. It's a hybrid spot. It always has been. But I think in the Big Ten with this defense, it's going to be more like another linebacker than it is like another defensive back. So if you have Eric Fields there, because of the mentality that he has, and he's got the speed, he probably has the speed to play corner, but maybe not. But certainly safety, athleticism to play as a defensive back. But his brain is wired to be a linebacker, and to me that says something about what they're going to use that rover spot for. If he's
I know you're gonna laugh, but if early indications or anything, a guy that I think stands to really make a move. He looks fantastic. He was almost kind of left for dead with the previous staff. He gets a new set of eyes and a new frame. Deshaun Singleton is a guy that he's not on anybody's radar.
Yeah.
He's definitely a guy that I'm just watching him move and his body type. He's trim, he's long. Singleton could have an impact before it's all said and done. And he's a guy we pretty much all but forgot about.
Yeah, we heard from him in the spring. And I think I remember thinking in the spring when he came out to do interviews that was a surprising choice of the staff to send and talk to the media. And, usually that's an indication. Like when you see Ruquan Buckley and Blaise Gunnerson on the first day that there's defensive players available to talk here in camp, and those two guys are among the four that they pick. That says something about what the coaches think there. And, it may not mean anything when September rolls around, but it very well could. And that was the case with Singleton back in the spring. I think they liked what he was doing, and he's another piece there. Maybe he is the one that emerges, or one of the guy that emerges. If there was a spot on this entire team where they could afford to lose somebody as accomplished and experienced as Miles Farmer, it's probably right there in that mix within the secondary. I don't, you never want that, or of course it goes without saying. It's a bad thing when you lose somebody like that, whether it's injury or suspension or portal, but they can withstand it right there, and it's going to present some opportunities for players like Deshaun Singleton to step up.
We're talking to Mitch Sherman, Nebraska and college football writer for The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, not only did we talk about Farmer this morning, we also talked about Big Ten expansion scenarios. And the reworking of future schedules after adding USC and UCLA makes it easier to see how things could work out if the conference were to add 2 or 4 other Pac-12 schools. Fewer rivalry games, the disbanding of divisions, that's kind of why. But, with the direction college football is going in the Pac-12 is heading, would you say the Big Ten would benefit more by increasing it by 2 or by 4? And where would you kind of cap the number of, hey, this is the highest that, one conference could really be at?
I think it just depends on what this is going to be in the end. I mean, what's the end game here? Is it just to make college football like a version of the NFL where you got a couple of 20-team leagues or a couple of 24-team leagues? I mean, if the Big Ten and the SEC are going to just be these vacuums that suck up everything else in college football and are like the major leagues of college football, I could see it going as far as 24 teams. It seems crazy. It's obviously that's a higher number than what you have in the AFC and the NFC. But what if college football was a 48-team Super League, and then everybody else played at a secondary level? And if that's the case, well, then the Big Ten, it's going to be the Big Ten on one side and the SEC on the other side. And I don't know where the Big 12 fits into all of that. Some of those teams probably are going to end up defecting to one of the 2 big leagues, but that's several steps down the road. I don't think we're just going to get to that overnight. Probably not even here in the next few years. There's an evolution process that's been going on. You can go back to when the first real big round of expansion here in the modern era began. And, that was, of course, involving Nebraska and Mizzou and A&M and Colorado. And, the avalanche has just kind of rolled downhill since that point. And here we are. I think realistically, it makes more sense, in the short term, for the Big Ten to add 4 and be at 20 than it does to say add 2 and go to 18. And I don't know then about divisions. I mean, they haven't even disbanded the divisions yet. We're still a year away from that. We know it's going to happen. But if you go to 20 teams in a league like the Big Ten, it's like, do you have to reinstall divisions? Are you going with like 4 or 5 team divisions or 2 10-teamers? I mean, just the way that you would structure a schedule in a 20-team league gets pretty unwieldy if you don't have divisions. So I don't know. Maybe they're coming back.
I don't know. Kind of like kindred spirits again, which maybe is why we get along. I think it is all about the long game. And I was saying in the last segment, it's like the fast nickels versus the long dimes. I think ultimately it'll be some big monster. I could see maybe 4 leagues or 3, right? Because the ACC and the Big 12 right now is sitting. If you'd have asked me a year and a half ago, okay, Texas is leaving, Oklahoma's leaving, what's the Big 12? The Big 12 kind of landed on its feet relative to losing their 2 bell cows, and it's an amazing basketball conference, at least as it stands right now. I could see it being like 4 20 or 22 league deals here in like 2030 or 2028 or something, and them doing it that way. And I think the vacuum thing is pretty accurate if you're playing the long game, which I think these conferences are, with a handful of mega conferences.
Yeah, they're going to have to start to do that. And I think, the commissioners,
especially as the NCAA weakens.
Right. And the commissioners in these leagues, and, 4 of the 5 are new. Sankey in the SEC is the only one of the 5 Power 5 commissioners who's been at this for more than a few years. Jim Phillips, the former Northwestern AD who's in charge of the ACC, he's been there longer than the other 3. But these other guys in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the Big 12, they're all like a year or less or 18 months or less into their jobs. And like you can see this real contrast between a commissioner who is thinking big picture long term with Brent Yormark at the Big 12 and how that's benefited the Big 12 and set the Big 12 up to be viable, at least. And then what it's done in a place where they've not thought like that with George Kliavkoff in the Pac-12. And it's like, if this league disbanded next week, I don't think anybody would be surprised. So, leadership is really important these days, more important than ever in college athletics when it comes to this, the future and expansion. And I think based on the reports that I've heard from, my coworkers at the Athletic and then getting to hear him for the first time in person last week, I think Tony Petitti at the Big Ten is he's certainly positioned. And he's in part he's positioned because of the conference he's leading, but also because of his skill set and his background. He's positioned to do a good job in thinking long term and big picture. You have to do that now, even if you're the Big Ten and you're in a good spot. Even if for the SEC and you're Greg Sankey, you have to think long term, big picture. What's this thing potentially going to look like 10 years from now?
Mitch, today we get to hear from Coach Satt, Coach Barthel, a few other offensive players. What are you still questioning about this offense heading into the season that you hope can either get answered today or at least in the next few weeks?
I think the running backs, I think we're going to hear more about running backs than any other position today. It's probably the least concern I have with any position group. I want to know maybe how they're separating things now that we get to the spring. It's now that we get past the spring, we get to August, and is it just like pick up where they left off from April? Because in April it was Gabe Irvin and then kind of everybody else. Anthony Grant started the spring on suspension, so he was behind. But he's okay now. He's in good standing. So I'm curious with Barthel. Like, are those the 2 guys right there, who are competing to be an every down back? And then does Ramir Johnson kind of mix into there in some specialty roles? And can he be a hybrid player in this offense? Or are all 3 of those, guys going through a intense competition to be, the player that you rely on? Despite that, and those questions I have about the running back, it's the position I have the least amount of just concerns about right now. I really look everywhere else. I want to know what's going on the offensive line. That's going to just continue to be a question until they go out and prove it. What's happening at left tackle? Is Teddy Prohaska ready to go? Is Turner Corcoran playing that spot right now? How are they going to finally make this work for Turner Corcoran where you can put him in a spot and plan for him to be able to play that spot and stay there for a long term? I think that's big for him. It's big for the offensive line. At receiver, is it Billy Kemp and Xavier Betts and then, really everybody else? It's kind of what it sounds like early in camp. Like those two guys are leading the way, especially with Marcus Washington still coming back from an injury. And I think he fits in that mix too.
He will.
When he's healthy for sure. But, tight end, you're going to have Eric Gilbert. I mean, that's a huge question right now going into, as they get further and further along, marching toward that first game, which is 4 weeks from today. So, I think you kind of have to prepare like you're not going to have him. And if you get him, then that's a huge benefit. But when are you going to find out? Because if he's a piece that's there, looking at him, getting eyes on him and seeing him on Sunday down at Fan Day, man, I mean, like I wrote this and even before I saw him on Sunday, but like he's a man among boys. Like he sticks out if he walks in when he walks into an NFL locker room, let alone, walking around in Lincoln. So, just the ability to have him and the respect that he would command the respect that a defense would have to show to him, and he can open some things up for a lot of people. They're potentially loaded at that tight end spot, and then if you don't have him, we'll see on Fedoni how rusty he is. It can go from a position that's super high on talent and potential to one where you're not in that position. So there's still a lot of questions. Quarterbacks, I think we know what's going on there, but it'll be interesting for sure to hear from Sat today and EJ about the running backs.
It's interesting. I'm just listening to you talk. Sat was the coach that I noticed the least in terms of his sounds, but was probably the busiest in terms of his movements, right? He didn't say a ton, but he was constantly talking to guys within the huddle, kind of managing the deal. He had good command. Let me get you out of here on this, Mitch. If you're talking about the tight ends, and it's a talented group, and I felt like when the season started, the coach that would be the most difficult to replace from last year's staff was Becton. I felt like he was the one guy that every year his players got better, they developed, and he had a really good rapport. And sometimes when you get a new guy, like it's just hard to match that chemistry and continuity. Do you think, and Coach Martin taking over for Wager is a good resume, right? The Division I guy, and has put a couple of guys in position to play in the league. Do you think that position is talented enough where they could make just kind of a seamless transition if I could convince you that Becton may be the hardest guy to replace?
I agree with you on Becton. And it wasn't just his coaching. It was just the whole his aura, what he guys all over the team respected him. I mean, I think if Becton had ambitions in his career to be a head coach, like he would have been a head coach a long time ago.
Yeah.
But he loved doing things the way that he did them, and he was loyal to UCF for a long, long time, and it's just the way his career went led him to be, I think, just a masterful position coach. Yeah. So yeah, he's really hard to replace. I think there's enough support around Josh Martin. He knows what he's doing, absolutely, as a tight ends coach. I mean, he did it for 6 or 7 years already at the FBS level. So it's not going to be a problem for him to come in and have issues coaching those guys. And I think
he was an interim at ASU in a similar deal.
Yeah, and he's coached running backs, he's coached tight ends, so he knows what he's doing. And he's another guy like Garrett McGuire, who grew up in coaching. His dad Joe, longtime Texas high school football coach, a leader in the Texas high school coaching community. So he's lived around this thing. No questions at all about Josh's experience and expertise. I think he knows the personnel as well as anybody on this staff does, with the exception of Raiola, who was around last year. But we'll see how it all comes together. A lot of it's just going to depend on the availability of a guy like Gilbert and the health and readiness of Fedoni, who hasn't played in 2 years, basically. They like what they have in Borkacher. It's just going to be a work in progress. I mean, I don't think there's many positions on the team where, there's a really wide like ceiling versus floor for this position group. It could go really high, or if things don't work out, some of which is out of their control, it might be a position that's not a strength for them on the offensive side. But, I think it'll fall somewhere in the middle, and it'll be a pretty good group. And one that, you get Carter Nelson into the program. The state of Nebraska just tends to produce a lot of good tight. I don't think they're ever going to be they're never going to have an issue finding tight ends to play in this program. So that's a great thing. I think for this offensive system, because it's one that really wants to feature that position. They have the bodies to do it this year. Whether it all comes together, we're going to find out here pretty soon.
Mitch, thanks for taking the time this morning. We appreciate it. We'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Mitch.
All right. Good to talk to you guys.
That's Mitch Sherman. We'll take a break. More coffee and cream next.
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
DB, I was thinking after that interview with Mitch.
What were you thinking?
Well, my brain kind of goes a ton of different ways. I had asked him who you could really see stepping up and taking advantage of the open opportunity now with Miles Farmer out, and he had mentioned a few names. He brought up Eric Fields, and then I think that kind of sparked your brain in a way to bring up Deshaun, and I'm like,
Singleton.
You bring up D. Singleton. There's no way he's on anyone's radar to be somebody this year.
There's
no way.
I just think I looked at his frame and like some of his testing numbers, and he's going to have to skip some guys, right? But he's kind of a guy that didn't really have a home, and so I think he was pretty overlooked.
Like I'm looking at Phil Steele's projected starting lineup, and Deshaun Singleton is back there.
Oh, I know. I mean, I know what I'm saying. Like it's going to probably, I don't know. He's twitchy enough. He's got.
Is this something you saw recently?
They're not very. They're not very deep. Isn't the word? They have bodies, right? You could move
a lot of bodies in the secondary.
You could move. A Hartzog. You could get him off the corner, like let's say, and he could play that boundary safety. Because the way the 5 looks, it's not just a traditional 2 deep. So we got to get that out of our head, right? Somebody's getting down to the box. Some bodies are usually getting down into the box. So you need to have the ability to tackle and get down. Ask Coach White anything about his defense about, hey, what does the secondary have to be able to do? So they have to be able to tackle. It's the first thing he's going to tell you. If you can't tackle, you can't play. So you're looking at just the bodies. You're looking at like an Omar Brown, Gifford, Collier, who can play some corner too. Like, does Hartzog play the corner? You start getting into like the numbers game. What do you do with Phelan Sanford? Is he a box guy? There's Singleton. Like there's
there.
There's a job that I think he can win. Now that rover spot is you have to be tough and you've got to be able to play in space. But it creates freedom because you're kind of like the movable chess piece. I would love to in this defense, I would like to be either the rover or the field safety because I think you're going to have the opportunity to make plays on both sides. And so, I mean, it's low.
Is that because you really don't have to cover anyone?
I'm not saying you don't have a responsibility. You have some freedom. And it's a very check-friendly defense, like CHECK, not like the Republic. So I think you don't have to know everything in order to play. And, I mean, I mean, people are like, oh,
that position's more instinct over anything else.
It's like, oh, Eric Field. I mean, we've said since the film, right? Since Eric Field's film first came on the radar and he committed to Nebraska, anybody with a pulse was like, you know what, this guy's really good. Like, he was my favorite in the deal. Like, classic runner hitter, mean spirited, son of a boxer, tough. Like, for the most part, the top 4 on the Super 6 are all guys that could play. At least my Super 6, which was Princewell, Fields was 2, Leonard was 3, and Alvano was 4. Like, I'm not usually good at those, but those guys seem to be just look different.
Yeah, and you know what? It's telling too when you look at my list, and I have 3 of the same 4 that you just listed in your top 4. But that's not just us 2.
And one of your guys was playing early. I was a little surprised to see that Gatula wasn't with the first half of the practice.
I was too.
Group the other day, just because he'd gotten so much time that he'd gotten in the spring.
But there are a couple
of guys that are on that split practice that will have a chance to move.
Right, and I sat back and thought, well, Prohaska wasn't all the way back yet, so I can see why Gatula's getting a lot more looks. And
he looks sensational.
Teddy?
He's so thin. I wanted to get into it with Mitch about the body types because we try not to fall in love with that. You only know when it's bad.
Well,
you don't know, like, if they look good, does that mean good? You just know, like, oh god.
Well, you find yourself wondering what version of these guys are you getting?
Yeah, and just the body types. Just watch the guys that take the podium. Rukon, we talked about Buckley. And if he could help, and you get him with because now all of a sudden Buckley's got to be in the hunt without Brody Tagovailoa, right? It
has to be.
Rollins has got to be there. Obviously Ty Robinson, Leonard. You need another Jack that can play.
Jamari.
But man, you talk about the first guy to get off the bus.
Jamari Butler.
Take Butler. You want to get out? You want an all bus team? Hey Dimer, you go first. You're like, well, what's up? It's like I don't know, but I'm serious. Keep an eye on Deshaun Singleton making a move. I know right now it seems far-fetched.
I'm vaulting that,
but I keep an eye on it. Plus you spend all day watching defense,
right?
I barely.
And by no means are you here to, say a guy's name just so you can be first. Like this is you.
I'd rather be right than obviously well liked. Right. So
if you pull this one off, I'll be thoroughly impressed. Let's go to line 1, Shane, and talk to Jordan. He has some thoughts on Miles Farmer. Jordan, good morning.
Hey Andrew, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you,
Jordan? What's up?
Hey, I got a quick thought. I just want to say, Damon, I'm totally in on your take. Like as a fan base, we got to get better than like immediately minimizing contributions after someone flees the nest,
or maximizing
or maximizing the other guys that are still there, right?
Exactly. But just in the spirit of like holding up the other side, playing a little devil's advocate, I was curious like what you thought about this. We haven't seen a lot of guys who are contributors or starters, transfer out and then kind of like fall up, with the exception of probably Adrian and Wandale. And even Adrian, kind of like was the guy we thought he was, or once he left for K-State.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if there's a little bit of like reverse logic going on here, where they're like, oh, because he's transferring, we see people transfer and then they don't usually, do much at their new school. And so I wonder if there's a little bit of that that's going on as we kind of like self-reassure about someone leaving the program right before fall camp. But,
100%. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Jordan.
Jordan sounds like a pretty smart guy.
Yeah, well, he takes a big picture approach.
And he's right, though, right? So I do think, he's 1,000% right. I do think because historically, people don't have good landing spots. Like it's okay to like, they weren't very good, because usually they don't up their stock. Now, AJ Allen may be different, right? Because he's in Miami.
Well, Wandale was looked at as pretty good, right?
Yeah, I don't know how it's kind of a blur. I
remember when he went to Kentucky, it was like,
so I need somebody's got to probably, it's not important enough, but like just for my own sanity, somebody has to probably re-educate me on like how that whole thing shook out. The post deal, because all I could remember was the exit meeting. And so I was focused on Wandale's dad and Coach Frost, and I didn't really pay much attention to, was he going to be missed? Was he not? Right. Now he clearly played well. He's drafted.
Second round pick to
I know AJ Allen will be an interesting one to watch, but we even kind of poo-pooed him. He fumbled the ball in the spring and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, like this guy's pretty good. But I do think Jordan is spot on, because guys typically don't have a better landing spot. But you got to remember, sometimes the psyche plays a huge role when guys enter the transfer portal. You're a little upset, probably. You're not in a healthy frame of mind, and your sense of self-value versus your sense of self-worth is probably off. So you may think you're better than you are, or not as good as you're capable of being, because you've had what's happened to you in the past. So your landing spot sometimes is not as important as much as what's your mindset once you get there, right? Can you shake off, I just quit, it's easy to quit again, so I don't try as hard because it didn't work for me, versus seizing the moment. That's as much to do with it as anything. But
seizing the moment more than anything.
Yeah, but I do think Jordan's right. It trickles into the fan base's psyche.
Brian Edwards up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Now, Vegas insider, senior handicapper, and fan of the cold Budweiser bottles, Brian Edwards.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Brian Edwards.
I don't really love it.
Brian Edwards.
Were they using the cream cheese to butter the bagel?
Brian Edwards.
I'm going with the cowgirl.
Here is Brian Edwards.
Well, not much better, or I can't introduce this man much better than our big voice guy Cam did, opening up this segment. Brian Edwards joining us now, MajorWager.com, BrianEdwardsSports.com, at Vegas B. Edwards on Twitter. He joins us via StreamYard. You can catch him on YouTube or live on Twitter. There he is. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How we doing?
B, what's up, buddy?
Feeling good?
Oh man, doing well. Had a nice UFC card the other night.
Not too shabby.
4-2 plus 3.63 units. Both losses were. I just put 0.3 units on Ferguson as a plus 300 dog, and I had a half unit on Paella to win by KO. But everything else came out good. Paella and Holland were the big plays. I thought the Paella Blachowicz fight could have gone either way. I felt fortunate to get it, but then the MMA media guys, per MMA decisions, I tweeted it out. I think it was like 18 or 22 guys had it for Paella. I was a little surprised it wasn't more of an even split there. Were you watching the boxing, Damon, or did
yeah,
you
so I had split.
Yep.
So it was
Okay.
it was at the same time. I took a picture. I had one TV on boxing, one on the UFC, and when we put both TVs on the UFC, Poirier and Gaethje were just being introduced. So
did you feel like you had watched enough of Blachowicz Paella to have an idea of
I thought it. I would not have been surprised if somehow that thing was a draw.
after round one, especially.
It was. I thought it was pretty even. It could have.
Yeah.
I don't know how Blachowicz didn't put that one away after the
Early.
first.
Yeah, early.
Oh, I mean, he was on top of him for 5 minutes.
Yeah, it just it got. I think he's probably kicking himself. No pun intended. That one got away from him because he missed his opportunity.
And
then
he
he gave
gassed
the opening,
himself.
and Paella was just in better shape.
And not having to cut all that weight, I think helps him.
Yeah. Surprised that the kick found a home to that left ear.
You know, when he threw that head kick in the first round, I looked at my buddy. I go, I don't think I've ever seen Gaethje throw a head kick. And then in his presser, he said he doesn't throw many head
Well,
kicks.
it was off the feint too, so you know that Poirier didn't see that coming because he's thinking he's getting down on the right hand, and here comes the kick, and it's just like
He threw that kick 3 times too.
Ouch.
Right. And I don't ever remember him throwing a head kick. I mean, it's always he throws the leg kicks constantly, but I never remember him throwing a head kick ever. But it worked.
At this point,
Night.
at this point for you, is McGregor just talking to be talking?
Yep, just trying to keep his name in the news, man. They did come out with odds on Gaethje McGregor just in case it happens, and Gaethje was like minus 330, I think.
Yeah,
not shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, look, McGregor's just an auto fade when he does come back.
Oh man, B. So away from UFC, away from boxing, you sent us some preseason power rankings in college football. And, we were talking about this at the beginning of the show with the Pac-12 essentially disbanding and all these teams trying to find new homes. Yet this season there will still be a Pac-12, and you like the Pac-12. There are some teams in the top 25 that,
for as bad as they butchered their PR,
Right.
they got a handful of really good teams.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best. I mean, as the conference just unravels before our eyes, this is the best quality Pac-12 we've had in more than a decade. No doubt about it. I mean, I think you could call the top 4 teams legit CFP contenders, and Oregon State's pretty darn good too, and UCLA's not bad, especially if that 5-star freshman quarterback, emerges. And I don't even know that he'll win the job, but if he does, I mean, Dante Moore, if he's as advertised, UCLA should be pretty good. So, I mean, I've got the top 6 teams in my top 23. I'm a little worried they're going to cannibalize each other, though. I'm not that worried about it, but for the Pac-12 purposes, wanting to get a team in the CFP for the first time since Washington did it with Chris Peterson back in, I want to say 2015, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they've got teams that can do it. And I mentioned Oregon State, probably the 5th best team in the conference. They are, I just discovered this, 12-1 straight up, 13-0 against the spread in their last 13 home games, and their home venue has been getting renovated and only been like half capacity the last 2 years, but now it's full. So, Oregon State's going to be good as well.
Smith knows what he's doing as a head coach.
He really does, man. I mean, like if if I wasn't worried about I don't even know his background if he's ever been in the SEC, but like I would be like, man, that guy can coach. Come, I don't know about the recruiting factor and how much of his roots go back to the South. Or I'm guessing none, but yeah, that guy can definitely coach, no doubt.
So, you know what's interesting, because one of the teams in the Pac-12 that you like, and I know their schedule's tough. I was surprised to see their win total in it's like the 8.5 range, but Utah on paper seems like they're going to be a really good football team, but they have a surprisingly low win total. Number. I mean, they do open up with your Gator bait, but still, is Utah better than we think, or is it more about the schedule?
I think it's the schedule. Like the Pac-12 teams they don't have to play are Stanford, a layup victory, and Wazoo, who would be a victory as well, although Wazoo's not bad. And then their non-conference, Florida at home and at Baylor. I mean, I think it's all about the schedule. Oh, and Cam Rising, obviously, is he going to be healthy? Because Florida and Baylor are right out of the gate. So if Rising's not healthy and able to go, and right now he's only been cleared for throwing and dropping back, no lateral movement. So he's participated these first couple of practices in a limited basis. He has not even been approved to move laterally or anything like, quick reaction stuff. So, but I mean, he's got several weeks. We'll see. But I think it's the Rising situation and question mark for the first 2 weeks that are tough games. And then, the schedule just in general. I mean, they got to play at USC and at Washington and at Oregon State on a short week. And then they still have to deal with Oregon and UCLA at home. And then, like I said, Florida and at Baylor.
Is there value at USC? I mean, they're the team that you ranked atop all the Pac-12 teams at plus 1,600. To place that to win the national championship this year. Not historically a good defense, but they do have the projected number 1 pick in Caleb Williams. Do you think there is value at placing a bet like that?
Maybe in the sense that you could make a profit by hedging, if they make the playoff and taking their opponent in the semifinals, future weight, or, figuring out something to hedge. I don't think they're going to win the national title, but they definitely have they probably have the best offense in the country. They definitely have the potential to make the playoff. I just worry about their defense. I know they added a lot of good talent defensively out of the portal. There's no doubt about that. But look, they were plus 22 in turnover margin last year. And a lot of that has to do with the fact Caleb Williams doesn't turn it over much, 42-5 TDI-INT ratio. But you still can't count on their turnover margin being that lopsided in their favor. And I just worry about the defense. But Lincoln Riley has been to the playoffs 3 times. He can get them there. The defense has got to be much improved. We'll see on that. I actually have Washington 1 notch. I have them at 9th and USC at 10th. But Washington's got to play at USC and at Oregon State. If there's a season win total in the Pac-12 that I do have a little lean on, it's Washington over the 9.5 at plus money. I would have rather have gotten it at 9 and maybe shop around. If there's still a 9, I would like that because I think you at least get a push. And if Penix got hurt, you do have a backup that started 15 career games. Dylan Morris didn't play that great, but it was early in his career on some bad teams. They went 4-0 against ranked teams last year, 11-2. 8 starters back on defense, 7 on offense. They won 7 games by double digits. They were plus 1,860 in net yardage. Their 2 losses were on the road, 1 possession games last year. So I think Washington and USC are probably the best. And then there's Utah. And I'm leaving one team out. Oh, I'm leaving Oregon out. I probably have the least faith in Oregon. In fact, Oregon State might be better than Oregon. We'll see.
I actually think they could go 3-0 in the non-con. You have them at number 25. Got to be some value in looking at Mississippi State, doesn't it?
I just don't know about Arnett. I loved him as a defensive coordinator. We just don't know anything about him as a head coach, and he's going a little bit away from the air raid. I don't think they should go away from it too much, but they've hired a new AC. They're going to run OC, excuse me. They're going to run it more. But man, Will Rogers had that air raid mastered. He ran it in high school, and I just kind of have some questions. I think they're going to be good. Don't get me wrong. I question Arnett. I don't know what kind of clock management decisions he's going to make, and I question Rogers adjusting to the new offense. So those are just some question marks for me that keep me off them in terms of a win total.
SLU, Arizona, and I think it's Western Michigan in the non-con. I mean, it's pretty good for Mississippi State.
All you need is 7 plus 145 to get 7 wins.
Interesting.
B, we appreciate you sparking thought this morning. Take care. We'll talk again next week.
Sounds good, fellas. Y'all have a good weekend.
Thanks, B.
You too. Yep. That is Brian Edwards. When we come back, we will change gears and talk to Michael Bruntz, senior writer for Husker 24/7. He's next on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Top of the hour on Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. 9 o'clock means we're on KFOR in Lincoln, still on 590 ESPN Radio in town. We're live on Twitter, live on YouTube. There are plenty of games left for the Cardinals, by the way.
They have to go 28 and 25.
Yep. 28 and 25. It's possible.
Yeah. I mean, 53 games left.
I mean, we already saw our next guest move away from his Oakland A's and start repping the Baltimore Orioles.
That was great. That's a great hat. Simple and clean.
Let's welcome in Michael Bruntz now, senior writer for Husker 24/7. Bruntsy, good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Bruntzy, that was a fantastic hat, man. I applaud you.
Thank you. There's no allegiance shift. I just have long appreciated.
You appreciate teams with a ballpark?
Yeah, well, teams at the ballpark and teams that win games. But no, the tri-color hat. There's no better look in baseball, in my opinion, than the three colors on the hat. But I like the Orioles hat, but I was still checking in on the Dodgers and A's last night. Don't get it twisted.
Forgive me.
The A's are coming to St. Louis in a couple of weeks for bringing the road trip to St. Louis. The summer of Sell.
So they've only been outscored 17-4 in the first two, Bruntzy. So I'm expecting big things tonight at 9:10.
Mm-hmm.
Were you sweating a little bit though in the opener?
I was.
It got to 4-3, and that would have really hurt. A loss there hurts the Dodgers come tournament time.
Yeah, pretty slow start, but hey, man, I just win, Bruntzy, just win. And as a matter of fact, when the Dodgers got 4 in the whatever it was, the third or the fourth,
right?
I was like, oh, we're on cruise control. No, the don't quit A's come back in the 6th and 7th, but that's okay.
Yeah, you got to get them like they're like an FCS team playing in that first game. You don't let them hang around because then you get the tension in the building. Everybody knows you should be beating them like a drum. So I'm glad the Dodgers pulled it out.
Hey, how would you like to be the New York Mets right now? Just getting handled by the Royals, the Twins. It's like, talk about waving the white flag. And then Scherzer comes out and he says, yeah, they just couldn't commit that they'd be all in 2024. Didn't a lot of people like the Mets in 2023, Bruntzy?
I thought we always liked the Mets to spend money, right? Like it's yeah, that would be hard. Like I think that would be worse than my situation because at least now you kind of know the score, right? You're not spending money. They're jacking ticket prices to keep everybody away. Everybody hates the ownership. But like you've got the Mets over there just spending money hand over fist and just absolutely nothing to show for it but dysfunction. I mean, it's incredible.
When you're talking about, I was joking with Andrew. I'm always worried about monopolizing your guys' time. I mean, because there's like 80% of you that I think I like more than you guys like me. So you only have a limited amount of time at practice. You're not really trying to waste that talking to me, are you?
No, I don't mind.
Are you just saying that?
I don't like the characterization that somehow I don't like you.
You'd probably tell me too, so I know I don't have to worry about that. You're like, yeah, that guy's kind of a douche.
Bruntzy, do you find benefit in conversations like just talking with DB sometimes to have somebody to talk to? Like if you're watching plays happen in front of you, and even if it's small talk beforehand, you can just quickly turn it on to practice mode.
Yeah, well,
you're a lone ranger, Bruntzy. You're your own dude there.
Well, I got things to see. I don't really know what I'm looking at, but I got to.
And that's why he's talking to you.
No, I can't help it.
Well, Damon was on a visit. I was a little. I wanted to stay away.
Hey, you're coming up to him, and he's like, "No, go back."
How? I don't know if cool is the word. Unique. Were you like, oh, this is good? Do you like the split practices with the older, younger guys?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, personally, I would like to have the younger guys out there to see them in practice because that was the one one look we got at practice this week. But
That's right.
It makes sense.
They should let you come back for another 30 for the young group.
Yeah, that would have been nice. That would have been a nice gesture. But no, I think I go back to something that Matt Rule said in Indianapolis where he was talking about. I think the question was something like, what would you deem success of fall camp? And his answer, I think, makes sense in the context of the way they're doing practice right now. He said that he wants the guys that they choose to help them against Minnesota to be the same guys that they are that are helping them against Michigan.
Week 1 versus week 5. Yep.
And I think the way that you do that is you get as many looks at guys as you can. I mean, I just think that's where this team and this roster is right now is, you got 120 guys in camp. You got 138 on the roster. I mean, you need to know whether or not a guy's going to help you or not. And if you're not giving guys reps, I mean, it's just all projection at that point and guessing, right? So I think splitting it's smart. I think it also keeps the freshmen engaged. It keeps the young guys engaged. And I think that's really important too with the new staff is saying to those guys that are a little bit further on the depth chart of the third team, like, look, you at least have a chance to move up here or at least show something. So it's smart, I think, especially in the first week of fall camp when you're not even in pads anyways, but you're just getting an idea of kind of what you got coming out of the summer.
Bruntz, as you search for this so-called help with these young guys, what position group do you think needs a fall emerger to make a significant impact throughout the season?
Wide receiver. I mean,
it's amazing. The last 2 months, everybody's down on wide receivers. I didn't know. Bruntz, I didn't know why people were high on it to begin with, and I'm not saying it couldn't be good. Just no productivity.
Who's your top 6 right now?
Receiver?
Minnesota right now.
So Fedoni's going to flex. So I'm going to throw him in there. Betts.
Cheating though. That's cheating.
Okay. Just wide receivers.
Betts, Kemp.
Yeah.
Let's go. Billy Kemp, Betts, Marcus Washington.
Castaneda.
Oh yeah, IGC. And after that, it's crapshoot.
Yeah. Right? Like
total,
right now you're
total crapshoot. But I don't think I could pick 16 starters on out of the 22. I don't know if I could pick. Can you pick 7 defensive starters? 8?
No.
Dude,
we were talking about this on our podcast yesterday, and it's still the defense and where guys fit and who's where. It's tough to kind of wrap your arms around.
I feel like you would get most of your success on the line versus.
I don't even know about. I can't even pick 5 offensive linemen, let alone 3 D line.
Oh, you could probably pick the 3 defensive linemen.
I don't know.
I mean, if you just went with let's go with veterans here, you could pick the 3.
I could give you Ty Robinson.
You could put Blaze in there too.
Gunnarsson?
Yeah.
Oh no. Nope.
I'd feel fine with him.
Nope. Because he's got to still grow a little bit, and he's still a second level guy. It's hard.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not hard.
It's hard, man, and it's so competitive.
What about Nash?
Well, I mean, they say good things. He still can't play at 45 degrees yet. He's a burst guy. There's a lot, Bruntz. I'm trying to sort through this in my head. I can't get it right.
The wide receiver spot more than any. I asked people that same question. Like, if you had to give me your top 6 right now for the start of the season, it exactly what just happens. Where you get to about 4, and then everybody starts mumbling a little bit or changing the subject.
Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
blah,
I mean,
blah.
So to your original question, I mean that you needed multiple young guys to step up. I think. I mean, we've seen it in Nebraska before when you don't have wide receiver depth, how quickly that can kind of thin out as you get through fall camp. I mean, there was that one fall camp. That's how Stanley Morgan got on the field. It was just
when they had like 4 healthy bodies out of 19. Do you remember that? He's like, yeah.
I mean, it worked out for Stanley, but I mean that's the challenge. So yeah, I mean you've got to have some buddies, multiple step up and be ready at that spot. I think.
Bruntz, let me ask you something, and this is primarily because I've admitted you're super smart. So I'm going by delivery here, and you can disagree and say no, I read it like this or whatever. This is just open dialogue. So we've had kind of 4 real departures, right? We had Wager's firing or resignation, Miles Farmer not being here, Fleeks getting sent back home. And this wasn't a dismissal, but it flew under the radar about Brody Tagovailoa. And I'm not saying Coach Rule was dismissive. It just wasn't like, I'm going by it's like, okay, he's hurt. It's going to hurt. He's going to be a good player. I felt like in his delivery of all that information, he was kind of indifferent about Wager. This is my read. He was disappointed in Farmer. He was kind of matter of fact about Brody and Fleeks. Of those 4 scenarios and how he handled the bad news, which one is most indicative of how tight a ship he's running of this program?
I would say probably Wager.
Because of the zero tolerance?
No, well, for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
I mean,
that's why I asked you. No,
I think part of it is maybe it's just the timing of it, but there's very much like this happened. They got the press release out. It was this guy's gone, this guy's in, and the bus is leaving the stop. Like we've addressed it and we're moving on, right? Like, and I think you're able to do that because of the way that they hire staff. I mean, if you look at their off-field people that they have in their group right now, if let's say you had to quickly replace somebody at another spot, there's somebody waiting in the wings. I mean, there's a little bit of a farm system, if you will, going on in the analyst group, and I think that's by design. I mean, that's how they run things, and I think that's more indicative of the type of attention to detail and the way that they set things up, because they know that guys are going to have opportunities down the road at other places, whether it's a coordinator job or whatever, and they've got that next person ready to go. I mean, they had an analyst who has multiple Power 5 stops and coaching experience, just kind of ready to go. I mean, that to me is more kind of how you connect it to the big picture of the way that Matt Rule does things. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's just interesting because dismissive is too strong of a word, but in all of those categories, he's like, okay, next man up. And so like when I try to describe what makes him captivating is I said he's the guy that's always willing to push away from the table or walk away, yet you still somehow genuinely know he cares.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, well, and even in those situations, like in the Fleek situation, I mean, my read on that is that he's disappointed, but at the same time, like, that's still his guy. He's still loyal. He left the door open that, if he's able to get the weight off and, do the trash bag work and run laps and cut the weight. Yeah. I mean, he can come back. I mean, there's kind of a delicate thing there that he's kind of able to thread that needle. I mean, it's like Danny Kalen's recruitment too. I mean, he played that perfectly in what was probably socially a pretty tough spot. I mean, I think he just has he's got a good feel for that stuff, and kind of how to really it's hard to explain, but he's just good at things like that most people would look at and be like, wow, that's kind of a tough situation how you handle that, but he does it with grace.
I was saying to Robbie and Andrew a couple of weeks ago, I think it has a lot to do with because people. So now you're out on a bigger scene, and people are like, oh, he doesn't miss, or he's always looking for the next, like popular deal. Like this was on the heels of the volleyball team meeting with him, and they're like, oh, Rule, he just bats 1,000, he doesn't miss, he's always seizing the opportunity. And I said, typically when you're other centered, like when you want the best for the greater good, those things just typically seem to naturally happen, right? Could you or would you try to explain it like that? Just because he's so other centered on the big picture, he doesn't get bogged down with the negative or the detail or the nitty-gritty details?
Yeah. Well, he said something in Indy too, that he's kind of at the point in his career where like you just need to kind of trust yourself and go. And like you're going to piss people off. Not everybody's going to be happy with the way you do things, but you just kind of need to be comfortable and confident in kind of how you do things. And I guess that's maybe what I would go back to too. And we talked about, wanting to, be most comfortable around college kids and, kind of the development, on and off the field there. I think you're right. I think that's part of it. And I think he's just, just his personality, when you talk to him, he's so dialed in all the time. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there'll be missteps. I'm sure there'll be things that people kind of raise an eyebrow at, but, he just seems like a guy that's just comfortable with what he's doing. And I think when you're that way, you tend to kind of bat a higher average than you do normally.
Bruntz, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking ahead now to the season, and I'm skipping past Minnesota, and I'm thinking about these non-conference games. And, the loss to Georgia Southern last year really dampened the attitude and the confidence of this team. Now, of course, with Coach Frost getting fired around that same time too, that doesn't help. But, if the Huskers were to lose one of their non-con games this year, which do you hope the L comes against in terms of least damaging to the internal competitor or like easiest to recover from?
I do think most people pick 3-1, right? In the non-con.
Yeah.
And if you're super cool lady, you'd maybe say 4-0, but 3-1 appears to be the.
So what's that one, though? What's the one you hope it is that's easiest to recover from?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, and sometimes in those games, those non-con games too, it almost kind of matters where they fall. I mean, with last year, like dropping that Georgia Southern game kind of on the heels of the way things played out in Dublin and the way that things were kind of trending. I mean, that kind of felt like the death blow a little bit. I don't know. I mean, some people say, yeah, Colorado, you could kind of come back easily from that one, but I wouldn't say that. I'd say it'd probably be one of the other ones before I'd say Colorado.
Plus, Colorado's Big Fox. I'm with you. I don't think it's Colorado.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think. The easy answer is none of them, but I mean,
What if listen? How about this, Bruntz? Yeah. What if I painted you a scenario? They get off to a. When is Northern Illinois? Is it the third game or the fourth?
Fourth.
The third.
Okay, so how about this, Bruntz? What if it was this? They get off to a 2-0 start. They're feeling really, really good. First home game, new team, home jitters. They lay an egg, but hey, Coach Rule spins it as we're learning to, we're back in the friendly confines. I tell you, these guys, you can't take things for granted. We gotta build on this and not let our guard down, or something like that. Whatever he says, right? But I could hear him saying something like that. Could that may be okay?
I think you could spin it. I just think that, if let's say you start really well against Minnesota and Colorado, I mean, you guys know how that would be received if you come home and just absolutely lay an egg. I mean,
and we would be so in love after a 2-0 start. It would be ridiculous.
If you start 2-0, you're getting a little. Starting to get a couple of conversations about Indy and what that looks like. And you get
where you're going to propose. Like, you're all the way in love, right?
Yeah, you're getting a little national run at that point with 2 Power 5 wins right out of the gate. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know that there's a good answer there. I mean, maybe Louisiana Tech, but I don't know. My answer is none. Like, I think that looks. You got to go. You got to get through those last 2. At home, I think, unscathed. That's my answer.
So, Bruntz, before I let you go, you're looking at where you thought Nebraska would be when Coach Rule had his staff completed versus where they are right now. Who's the first coach you're asking to pick his brain if you just get a 30, 40, 45-minute sit down?
I'd say Tony White. I mean, I think
we're two smart guys.
but like you're like you're trying to get your mind around the defense, and I don't know that we're going to really get that until the opener. I mean, but I think he's been enough places. He's pretty interesting. Like you guys were kind of saying earlier, if you're trying to make a defensive depth chart, it's hard to do. And I think that kind of plays in a little bit too to the way that they want to run the 3-3-5 and the way they want to use guys. So my answer is Tony White. I'm sitting down with Tony White. We're talking about what it was like growing up in El Paso and maybe some UCLA thoughts.
Bruntz, quickly here. Who's one player that you notice really reshaped his body this summer and looks more ready than ever to take on whatever comes his way this season?
Do you get into that, Bruntz? Are you a body types guy?
Well, you notice things. I mean, Xavier Betts looks like he's grown up considerably.
Oh,
since,
yeah.
The last time we saw him.
Yeah.
The defensive line. I mean, they ran those guys through on Tuesday, and those guys look noticeably different and not like bigger. They just look leaner, and there's definitely been a different approach with those guys. So those 2 kind of stood out immediately. And then, I mean, Gabe Ervin looks like he's, ready to do some arm wrestling championships right now with the way he showed up at fall camp. So those are the guys that kind of stood out.
He's a big, swollen, yoked dude. I hope he can still move left to right because I watched him try to get his he's getting fitted for pads, and it's like, are those implants or like what's going on? It made me uncomfortable.
He looks like a typical like Big Ten back from like 1991 that would just have giant shoulder pads, and you got to try to tackle that guy for 4 quarters.
Yeah, have fun.
Yeah, he's yoked.
Bruntz, we appreciate your time this morning, man. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Mike.
That is Michael Bruntz at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. He covers Nebraska football, baseball, and recruiting for 24/7. And we appreciate his time. When we come back,
certainly not which non-con could you explain away the easiest. That's tough.
That is a tough one. Yeah, that we may have to sit on that one for a little while.
None.
There's something about the expansion that I want to get to, and then we'll do the Sports Six-Pack to close out the show. All that and more next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Before we go any further, I'd like to tell you about a new service called BioClear. And the only place to get that done is with Dr. Pratt over at Pratt Dental. It's located in North Platte, and he's the only dentist in Nebraska that provides this service. And you may be asking yourself, what's the BioClear method? Well, you know, it's all about the ultra thin tooth shaped form that allows permanent reconstruction of teeth with composite. Now you're like, Andrew, this doesn't make sense. Like you have to dumb it down for me. Okay. Well, it's an alternative to a crown. Multiple restorations in the same day, less time, less waiting, less invasive, and fewer appointments. To schedule one, you can contact Pratt Dental at 308-221-5900. 2800 or visit their webpage because they create healthy smiles over at Pratt Dental. Somehow, some way, I feel like I should send Molly over to Pratt Dental. I don't know if they work on canines, but she did have 5 teeth removed, and she may need that alternative to a crown. Oh yeah, she can hardly eat because we have to wet her food right now, and I can't imagine having soggy, soft food. I can't hear you. Can you hear you? I don't know. I was hoping that maybe it's like I said yesterday, kicking a washing machine. She has only gone number 2 once since yesterday. No, since 2 days ago. No, she is. Like, she's eating every meal. Yeah.
The anesthesia is served as
messing
kind of
her
like
up.
a blockage.
Yeah, easily could be the case.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Where am I going? You want to hear about what I wanted to talk about with the Pac-12?
Well, that's what you teased.
Yeah, there was something on my mind because we talked about with B. Edwards, Utah, and like how high up they were, but they're kind of the forgotten child at this point. Like, where are they going to end up if the Pac-12 does deplete completely? And then I started thinking about the Arizona schools, which aren't as highly touted for football. But wouldn't you be telling these schools to run right now? Like, the ship is sinking in the Pac-12.
Oh, yeah.
So run while you still have a chance. Apple's not going to save you. The money that's coming in from streaming is not going to save you at any point. So are you trying to buy time for yourself or what's really happening?
I think some of these schools, it seems like the Big Ten especially knows what they want to do. Like, I'm sure you've looked through the contracts and the TV agreements and what you're willing to take on and not. Sometimes I wonder what takes the announcement so long, right? So let's say if the Big Ten announces, okay, hey, we'd like Washington and Oregon, or myopically, maybe they do 4 at a time out of the Pac-12. I think you'd see everybody. I mean, did you see FSU's AD yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
like he's actively exploring all options to leave the ACC. You'd think that school in that conference
would be fine.
Is not just relative to that school in that conference, right? Now, maybe not everybody's in a power position like Florida State because they would be highly coveted.
Mm-hmm.
But can the ACC disband and not do basketball? I think the Pac-12 could do it.
Yes, they could.
And not do basketball. But I don't know about the ACC, though. So I always wonder how much of the other sports are tied to
basketball, other sports.
Yeah, does that keep them mum? Because at first blush, my answer to your question is, yeah, I'd be trying to look elsewhere. But I think you have a couple of other sports that may be the tie that binds.
But what you can look at, though, is, well, I could still find a lot of basketball prowess in the Big Ten. I could still find prowess in the SEC. So even if ACC does disband for whatever reason, you could still carry over basketball and think, okay, we're still getting a great level of competition here versus, say Florida State's like, I got to go join the Pac-12 now. And, Clemson too, so we can keep the Pac-12 alive. It's like, no, you can't really, because basketball would say, no.
Okay, so let's say this. Knowing what you don't know or knowing what you do know, would you like to be a school like, let's say, Creighton or Marquette that is in a conference that is exclusive to what it is? It's a basketball conference that doesn't have a football program. Is it easier for like Marquette and Creighton to function as opposed to, like, let's say UConn and you have like a hanger-on football program?
Yes, it is.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, because you just have less bodies to worry about. You're just worried about yourself.
But you could potentially have another revenue stream too.
That is 100%
true. If it's done correctly.
Right. Yeah.
So, because I don't think I look at like a school like UConn and I can't see them being in a very good situation.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, some schools need to find new homes, and the 3 I just listed there are the few. I mean, it's like getting horrible news from a doctor telling you that you have 1 year to live. Like, that's basically what it is right now.
Oh, I don't know.
You're not getting a miracle. You're not the exception.
I don't know about that. I think I'd rather move conferences than have the old doc tell me I got one more.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Because you're sitting right now in a Pac-12 where you really have 1 year to live.
But you got some viable options.
So the options are there, but what are they? Like, what are you guys doing right now? That's my question.
Yeah, I don't.
That's kind of what I was thinking of. My brain goes a ton of different places. You know that.
You asked me the same question last year.
No, I didn't.
Yes.
No, I didn't.
Yes.
Oh, maybe 5 years ago?
Nope, this is fresh on the
4
mind,
years?
Shane.
Man,
Yeah,
one
It's your own
year.
question.
1 year to live with moving conferences.
Man, how would you like to be Aaron Eulis right now?
There's no failure in sports.
Yeah, I didn't think we definitely didn't jump the gun yesterday. We just made the assumption it had to be related to gambling, but then all the reports came out yesterday, and you're like,
See, he gambled a lot.
of times, not. I mean, on average, like if you do the division,
Right.
you're talking like $12 per, but
to bet for what was the window? 2 years to
Yeah.
bet about 1,000 times a year.
yeah,
That's a lot of bets.
dude, that's a ton.
I mean, that's 3 bets a day.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that does that.
No,
not a soul.
That's awesome.
I don't know about awesome.
Not awesome, but I mean that's
Not
an amazing amount.
I don't know one person
That's
either.
an amazing amount.
So here's the deal, though. I was listening to, listening to reading Coach Hoiberg's thoughts, and I think Robin Wash had posted something that I was reading where it was brought to their attention in May, but they didn't know during the recruiting process. And maybe that's why it went so slow with Eulis, because kind of was like plan C after the plan B after the plan A in terms of him being on the open market once he was in the portal. So I don't know what people were privy to and what they weren't. But like, are you on the hook for that now? Because whatever the punishment is, you can't play him.
He may not be able to play it at all ever again.
So are we firm on these rules now, though?
So I found these bullet points yesterday.
Because this is kind of new.
And this was actually shared from a good friend of ours that works in the afternoon show on the station. Elijah Herbal had these points, and he tweeted them out. $200 or less, sports wagering rules and prevention education. Like, that's what you would get if you bet $200 or less. Between 2 and 5, it's loss of 10% of the season of eligibility plus the education. 5 to 8, it's 20% of the season and the education. Greater than 800, you lose 30% of the season and the education. But if you greatly exceed $800, which in this case has, NCAA reinstatement staff are directed to consider whether additional loss of eligibility, including permanent, are appropriate. Like, that's where we're at.
So it's still subjective.
It is subjective,
Okay.
but with the amount of money that was arguably placed at this point, or he's being accused of placing, to go from $800 to $32,000, $34,000, whatever it is, I mean, you're in choppy waters.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. To be honest,
when you really think about it, because you broke it down monetary wise, like, oh, it's about $20 a bet.
Yeah.
I broke it down by days when I first thought about it and thought, it's about 3 bets a day, 2-3 bets a day.
I don't know. Like, again, easily accessible. It's an Iowa thing. I don't know.
And, I almost wonder, too, with the Alabama stuff that came out and, U.S. Integrity stepped in and then it became a part of these universities. Maybe they found all of these things when they first got
the universities are
instituted.
definitely going to need some help policing it, too, though. You're definitely going to need some help because coaches and sports staff can't catch it.
We'll take a short break. We'll do the Sports Six-Pack when we come back.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Time now for the Sports Six-Pack on Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Presented by Zipline Brewing Company, makers of Dear Old Nebraska Brew, the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
And that's the can opener tropical ale that they're pushing right now. Guava and lemon, perfect for a hot summer day, refreshing and slightly tart. Find that beer at your favorite beer store. Now available at all Zipline locations as well, because it's time for the Sports Six-Pack presented by Zipline Brewing.
Huh.
What are you sharing? If you were watching something.
I'm going to Nebraska Public Media Access. That's what I'm doing. And
so if you have a beer in hand.
Yeah, and Shane, you can get whichever variety you want that Zipline offers, because they've got a ton of options. But Nebraska Media's got a new sports documentary coming out. It is In the Deed, the Glory. This documenting the historic relevance of 100 years of Memorial Stadium.
Do you have rooting interest in this?
No. I'm just captivated the fact that they built Memorial Stadium for $450,000.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Isn't that crazy?
To think about today.
That's some of your friends' homes, right? 400. Not my friends.
Not my friends either.
Your friends.
Maybe my parents' friends.
Yeah, it's my buddy's birthday, so I won't forget. It is August 13th, 7 p.m. Central on Nebraska Public Media. Make sure you stay tuned.
Shane, let's do this thing, man.
Question number 1.
If all of the Husker coaches got into a fist fight, who'd win?
That's weird. Like just of the 10.
If they all got in a fist fight together, who would be the last man standing?
Are we talking like,
you know who I think?
Anchorman type fighting?
Maybe they all show up and they have different weapons.
Gosh, you could ask 10 people and probably get
10 different answers.
Six, because nobody's gonna say Foley.
Right, that's true.
And nobody's gonna say Garrett McGuire.
Like up there is Knighton, up there is Coop, up there is
But Garrett's got
Donnie,
the age, though.
Raiola.
He's got the age, though.
Yeah, but I would go with Cooper over McGuire.
Oh.
Yes. But I'm thinking age-wise here. And I'd go Dvorak over McGuire.
A fist fight? Like just a brawl? God, Rule's such a wrestling fan, so he knows how those battle royales go.
I think Knighton will tire out.
He could lay in the cut.
But he doesn't have that reach, though, does he?
He doesn't have to. You're in close proximity.
Okay.
I would probably take Raiola.
See, I'd take Coop for the endurance portion of it.
And he's super mean-spirited. Like, he's competitive.
And Raiola, too. Oh, my goodness.
And I don't know if Coop, has a easy or relax button.
But that's okay.
Right? So, I could see it. But Donnie's not the nicest. I don't know. That's tough. I probably would take Raiola. I don't feel great about that, though.
It's actually a tougher question than people think. It seems easy. It seems like, if you just took Terrence Knighton, it'd be game over.
He's so jovial and nice and funny.
Yeah, but I think he could.
But he did play D-line for double-digit years.
Does it matter where it's at? I mean, if it was like on the football field or if it was out in the parking lot?
If you don't stop asking me dumb questions not relative to a battle royale fight, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Who cares where they fight? Parking lot, stadium, your living room? What difference does it make?
I'm just saying there might be rules when you're on the football field compared to.
Did you read that in the question?
Compared to if
did you read that in the question?
If you're in the parking lot.
What are we talking about now?
I have no idea.
We're on question number 2.
Question number 2.
Robin Lincoln, what would you be willing to blow off if your team was in the championship game that day?
Is there punctuation in there? Feel free to read that a little smoother. You want to try that again?
What did I say?
Oh my gosh, what a weirdo!
What did I do?
What would you be willing to blow off?
Read the sentence like a regular person,
Robin
please.
Lincoln, what would you be willing to blow off if your team was in the championship game that day? What did I do?
Oh, fudge. A lot.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd blow off my wedding. That'd be hard. Somebody wouldn't be happy. I thought this was the bachelor party weekend.
Shoot, I might.
Blow off my wedding?
Well, I for sure blow off your wedding.
What would I blow off?
Probably not my kids' sporting events, but almost anything else. I'm not doing anything important. I mean, outside of work. And my work is probably related to them playing in the championship game.
I don't know if I have a good answer.
No, let's say if this wouldn't happen, but hypothetically, if they move if we made it to the state championship and it was on a Saturday night, yeah, I'm not missing the state championship for championship chance for Nebraska.
Sorry, honey.
So I obviously can't DVR, although Shane would say, can you DVR it? Can you save it? No, that's part of the dilemma of the question, Shane. You can't go back and watch it.
Let's say the birth of...
Can you watch it in the parking lot, or do you have to watch it on the field?
Let's say the birth of my second kid. I saw the first one. I was there for it.
Isn't it weird, though, how some coaches aren't there for, I don't know about that either.
Well, sorry, honey. Cardinals are playing in Game 7. I got to run.
I've had this trip booked with the boys.
I promise I'll get a little souvenir in the shop for the baby.
Keep in mind, I could potentially be your last kid. While married, anyway. Read, man, read.
I can't read.
Question number 3.
Okay, so Jeff in Omaha. So I got to read a little bit faster.
What's up, Jeff? No, just
Jeff in Omaha. Would you rather have your name tattooed on your forehead or no front teeth?
I'm going to go with no front teeth. Maybe I can call Pratt Dental up. I don't want my name tattooed on my forehead.
Oh, God, this sucks.
You don't want Ruru on your forehead?
Not
I'm just thinking about eating in peace. So obviously dentures aren't an option.
Well, you would eat in pieces without front teeth.
Fudge.
You would.
I mean, how big's the tattoo? No.
Size of your forehead.
God, that would be sucky.
Sounds miserable.
I'll take the no front teeth. Poop.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sucks.
My name's Jeff.
My name's Joe.
Question number 4.
All right, Michael in Omaha.
What's up, Michael?
I heard you start bench cut. I heard a start bench cut question yesterday, and now I've got one for you guys. Start bench cut Doug Peterson, Kyle Shanahan, or Mike Tomlin? And Mike Tomlin.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
Start bench cut.
I'm starting Tomlin. And I'm going to bench Peterson, and I'm going to cut McVay.
No, Shanahan.
Oh. You know why I said that? Because I used to compare the two, McVay and Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
Starting Tomlin. I'm benching Shanahan, and I'm cutting Peterson.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll start Doug. I will bench Tomlin.
Well, you are the same guy that compared
and I will
moving
cut
conferences to a
Shanahan.
1 year to live sentence. You're starting Peterson out of those guys?
Oh yeah.
The least he has a
He's
Super
more
Bowl
accomplished than Kyle Shanahan.
because he hasn't won a Super Bowl, but
Right.
Shanahan wins a heck of a lot more.
That is true. I'm all about winning that title game. Because if I'm blowing off Kyle Shanahan's wedding, I'm going to Doug Peterson in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Question number 5.
Rank these college football teams 1 to 5 without knowing what's coming next. Florida State.
3.
I'll say 2.
Utah.
4.
What did I say? 2. I'll go Utah 5.
Notre Dame.
Oh, darn it.
I'll
I'll
2.
go 4.
Penn State.
Do I roll the dice on the 5th spot?
What'd I say?
I
2,
will
4,
put.
and 5.
I'm screwed now. I'll put Penn State 5. So
I'll put Penn State at 3.
Okay, and the last one, North Carolina.
Oh, damn.
No.
I don't want them 1. It's the only spot I have left.
Yeah, that's same with me.
You have to put them 1, 2.
I do. I put Florida State at 2. I did Penn State at 3.
That's funny.
It's not funny.
It is. And I read it slow, too. I mean,
Yeah.
if I would have read it fast, you probably would have been all right.
UNC, Notre Dame, FSU, Utah, Penn State.
UNC, Florida State, Penn State, Notre Dame, Utah.
Knowing what I know now,
I would have put Penn State at
Penn
1.
State would be 1.
Yep.
FSU 2, Notre Dame 3.
I could put
Utah. Utah was the only one I got right, and UNC 5. I'd go PSU, FSU, Notre Dame, Utah, UNC.
Okay, last question.
Go ahead.
Trevor in Omaha, what body part would you give up in order to make your team a blue blood for the rest of your life?
Body part?
Yeah.
I feel like I could give up like an easy one, right?
Or like a fingernail?
It's not a body part. What is wrong with you?
What about like
That's a body part. It's part of the body.
what about like your pinky, your right pinky, or your left pinky? One of the two. What do you really use the pinky for?
I would take my right ring finger. I don't need it for much. I need my pinky to still hold. I can get rid of this one.
Fair enough. That'll do it for Coffee and
my
Cream.
Ronnie lot.
We'll see you tomorrow.